The Unteachables by Gordon Corman. Chapter 10. Kiana Robini. Bad news from Utah. The equipment trailer got struck by lightning, so production on my mom's movie has to be shut down for a couple of weeks. Can't I just come back home while you guys are waiting to start up again? I ask Mom over Skype. That wouldn't work, she tells me. What about school? How can we pull you out of Greenwich when you just got started? And then re-enroll you once shooting resumes here? That would be too disruptive. I have to hold myself back from screaming, "There's nothing to disrupt! I don't really go here. Jeez Louise never registered me, and I'm not even in a real class." Forget it. Mom would be on the phone to Dad in seconds flat. Never a pleasant convo. I'd be back in the office fast enough to make my head spin, registering for 8 classes instead of just 1. 8 new teachers to get used to who give real assignments and real homework. No, my life here isn't perfect, but it's designed for maximum bearableness. Why get complicated? I'm a short timer, just not quite as short as I thought. 2 extra weeks in Greenwich, of Dad and Stepmonster, of Chauncey's sniffles and fevers and rashes and barfs. 2 more weeks in the Parmesan house, 2 more weeks of the Unteachables. Fine. I can handle it. I can do 2 more weeks standing on my head. Speaking of school, Mom goes on, how are you fitting in? I went there, back when it was the old Greenwich High. Great, I tell her. I've already gotten picked for this special program. Mom beams. Special? I knew she wouldn't be able to resist the idea of me being exceptional. I plow forward. It's called SES 8. Really hard to get into. I should know. I'm not really even in it. The teacher is fantastic. He's super hands-off because he wants us to learn to work independently. Mr. Kermit believes... Kermit? She interrupts. You mean from the cheating scandal? Cheating scandal? Mom's brow furrows. It was an awfully long time ago, the early 90s. I remember I was away at college when it happened. But it must be the same person. Kermit isn't a very common name. I'm intrigued. What did Kermit do? I don't remember the details, but the whole town was up in arms about it. I'm surprised he's still teaching. It was a horrible black mark against him. Wow, Mr. Kermit has a past. The plot thickens. Mom adds, do you want me to call the school and get to the bottom of it? No, I blurt. I mean, Mr. Kermit's an awesome teacher now, and that's the main thing, right? Who cares what happened in the 90s? But Kiana, it was a cheating scandal. I don't want you mixed up in something like that. Relax, Mom, I assure her. I guarantee that there isn't any cheating going on in SES 8. I can say that with total confidence because there isn't anything going on, period. Why would we even bother to cheat when Mr. Kermit never even looks at the few papers he gets? Eventually, she agrees to let the subject drop. I end the Skype call, my mind racing. Suddenly, I've cracked a mystery that's been nagging at me from the very first moment I followed Parker's schedule into room 117. Why would Mr. Kermit want to teach a class like the Unteachables? Answer. He doesn't. He gets a bad class every year because of what happened way back in the 90s. Seems a little crazy that he's still paying for a mistake from so long ago, but if Mom remembers, other people do too. Turns out SES 8 isn't just a dumping ground for the rejects of the school. The reject teachers wind up there too. So, Mr. Kermit is famous. If Mom still remembers what he did way back when, that counts as fame. Okay, it was a bad thing, but so what? On reality TV shows, the biggest stars are always the jerks. Besides, cheating scandal or not, I can't forget how he spoke up for our class to Mrs. Vargas, and how he fought for Barnstorm's right to stay with the football team. He may not be much of a teacher, but I'm more convinced than ever that he's one of the good guys. I'm almost anxious to get to school the next day, and it isn't just because Chauncey is barking the house down with whooping cough. When I get to room 117, though, Mr. Kermit is absent. We have a substitute, Mrs. Landsman. Mr. Kermit's not exactly a young guy, but Mrs. Landsman is really old. Raheem does a quick sketch of her rising from the grave as part of a zombie apocalypse. The kid is really talented. The picture makes the rounds of the class by paper airplane. Dawn of the Dead, hisses Mateo when the portrait lands on his desk. No talking, Mrs. Landsman orders. Too late. A nickname was born. She's Dawn of the Dead. Dawn for short. She's grouchy, but we should be used to that by now. Our regular teacher being a gold medalist at the Grouch Olympics. It feels different, though. Dawn crabs at us, while Mr. Kermit just crabs because crabbing is his natural state. So when some of it lands on us, we don't take it personally. We just happen to be in the same room. Dawn is yammering on about the Battle of Gettysburg when I hear a power hum, low but growing in volume. At first, I'm afraid the school's about to blow up. Then I realize the sound is coming from the desk next to me. Aldo. His face is almost as red as his hair as he devotes all of his breath to maintaining the sound. Now the hum is coming from behind me at a slightly different pitch. I risk a glance over my shoulder. Barnstorm's doing it too, a look of unholy glee on his face. Next, the noise drops at least an octave. Elaine, buzzing like a bassoon. Well, we Californians know how to prank a sub as well as anybody, so I jump right in. Pretty soon, SCS-8 is vibrating. Alarmed, Dawn of the Dead puts in the call to the custodian. As soon as Mr. Carstairs comes in, we stop humming. It was happening just a second ago, the substitute teacher insists. It sounded like a problem with the wiring. The custodian rakes us with a rueful look. It's the kids, ma'am. They're messing with you. They do it to all the subs. Dawn doesn't like that. For a minute there, I'm afraid we're going to have a real zombie apocalypse on our hands. But in the end, what could she do besides yell? She does a whole lot of that. It's pretty jarring when you're used to Mr. Kermit, who barely speaks at all. We fight back. We do the old drop textbook trick at least 20 times. Barnstorm drums with his crutches on the floor. Elaine pretends to be asleep, which is odd because Raheem stays awake and alert. Mateo speaks to the substitute in Dothraki and does all of his written work in 11 runes. That's right, I said work. Dawn of the Dead is trying to run this like an actual class. Who does she think she is? Take out your math books, she announces. What math books? Barnstorm returns. Surely there are math books. Her frustration is growing. How do you study math? We do worksheets, Mateo supplies. What worksheets? I don't see any worksheets. There should be lesson plans. Of course there should, if we had a normal teacher, but Dawn of the Dead doesn't know Mr. Kermit. Maybe she thinks we ransacked the classroom before she arrived and threw out all the notes on how she was supposed to run the day. Whatever the reason, she's getting madder and madder. With no lesson plans to go by, Dawn finds a language arts paragraph in some random book, and then she chooses Parker to read it aloud. So obviously, he takes forever to sound out the first word. And because we've been giving her a hard time all day, she picks now to decide that somebody's yanking her chain, when Parker's the only one who isn't. So she sends him to the principal's office. 60 seconds later, we hear a pickup truck with a broken muffler start up and peel out of the parking lot. You know, he didn't do that on purpose, I tell Dawn. He has a reading problem and he's sensitive about it. Miss Fountain comes over and tries to calm everybody down by inviting us for another circle time. Circle time? Dawn is outraged. These students are too old for circle time, and so are yours. Miss Fountain seems to be about to launch into her speech about how no one is too old for positive reinforcement, but then she takes a good look at Dawn of the Dead, whom actually might be. She beats a hasty retreat to her own class.